Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. Later in the show, we're going to have my dear sweet brother Chris join us, and we'll talk a little bit about Little League World Series. But right now, let's talk about a team that's earned its way back up to the level of 500, the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays up. How's it going, Matt?
Well, what a difference a week makes, Mark. That's nuts. I think we sat here last week and wrote them off, and I think they were listening, and they basically, said, "Hell no, we're gonna make a charge and we're gonna have some fun with it." So the series with the Mariners has certainly put them back on the map. It seems.
Yeah, here we are. It's Wednesday. There's a game going on right now, but at this point, I'm looking at some metrics here. It says the Rays have won 8 of their last 10 games. Now, the Yankees have done the same right now as well, but it's been great to see that. I mean, my gosh, you could have flipped those numbers just a couple of weeks ago, man. It was ugly.
Yeah, it was really ugly. And it was just, there wasn't any consistency. Everything was hit or miss. Everything was up and down. And it just seems like right now they're finally finding that groove. And, it was after a lot of different changes were made. Joe Boyle was sent down. A whole bunch of lineup changes were made. But to me, the thing that clicked was Carson Williams. When he was brought up, it just seemed to really catapult the Rays into a more productive mindset. And Tristan Gray also chipping in at shortstop and driving in some runs in key moments. Josh Lowe's picked things up over the last 10 days. Maybe he heard my criticism and he figured, hey, I want to be part of the Rays in 2026. Please don't cast me away. But Mark, it comes down to one man, in my opinion, overall. That's definitely put his stamp on the Rays and claimed them as his team, and that's Junior Caminero.
Amen, brother. I mean, I woke up this morning and I could see 2 sets of numbers in front of me. One was 40 and another was 100. And last night, that game, to watch Junior hit his 40th home run for the season, surpassing several other players who've achieved, 39. I think Carlos Payne is the only one at this point who's had a season where he had more than 40 home runs at this point. And let's see, I don't doubt that he's going to supersede Carlos's record. I think Carlos may have been as much as 49, but we'll see. But to see Junior also get that 100th RBI last night, dude, he got I think it was a double out of it. And it's just fantastic. Because I know there have been a few games last week where he was not probably at his peak. So it was so great to watch him right now. Now, I know the game's on right now for Wednesday night, and we're looking here at the bottom of the third, and the Rays are leading 8-0 and 1 out. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the game, the first couple of innings, but I think we spoke before about Adrian Houser and how he needed to step up because the Rays had invested so much in him and kind of, we thought acquiring him had to do with them still wanting to compete this year. Well, he threw 3 pitches in the first and had 3 outs. And then you went to Kirby, who I think might have been shocked by how quickly he had to go up pitch. And he just basically had a really struggled to get the Rays out. Now, mind you, Yandy Diaz hit a really tough pitch. Brandon Lowe hit a really tough pitch. Junior Caminero hit a really tough pitch. And so the Rays are doing damage because they're making really strong approaches at the plate and getting lots of production. But overall, I mean, it's just the synchronizing of everything that they're doing. Yesterday's win was even more impressive because the Mariners kept coming back and getting ahead, and then the Rays would have to catch up and then get back ahead. And when you're watching Drew Rasmussen give up 3 home runs, in 1 inning, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, there we go. That's the end of the game. No, the Rays decided to fight back, and they're showing a lot of tenacity and a lot of grit at a key part of the season now. Will it be enough? That is the ultimate question. If they win tonight, which it seems they're on their way to doing, they're going to be 2.5 games back of the Mariners. 2.5 games you could make up fairly, quickly. But will other teams that are in between match that or exceed it? That's, The Rangers lost today, by the way, as another team that's chasing down that spot.
Wow, I'm just looking live here at Chandler Simpson and the way that young man can run. He was at bat and his the speed. I don't know if they clocked it, but his ability to get on base, I mean, once he's there and to steal is just amazing. So, well, it looks really good. Like you're saying, I think we'll do well tonight with this is it's been interesting to see a lot of the changes you're talking about. And one of them this past week was we saw big paycheck basically being picked up on waivers. It's hot.
Yeah, yeah. Ha-Seong Kim, like I think we had mentioned that last week, right? That we thought sometime this offseason they were going to offload him. Like we were pretty certain that that was going to happen just because of Carson Williams' presence, and also the Rays paying. Have they ever paid a player more than 15 million in a season? I don't believe they have. Charlie Morton got the 15, and I don't think they've ever exceeded 15 million. So Ha-Seong Kim was set to make 16 million. And so it was just, I think the Braves with Austin Riley going on the end season IL, they wanted to make a push and really set themselves well for next year as well. So they're banking on a little bit of both, I think, in their case. But that 16 million next year, Mark, that's an intriguing chunk of money for the Rays to actually be able to reinvest now.
Well, I see you advocating on Blue Sky. It's like, let's actually give Junior Caminero some money and keep him here for a long time to come. Why not? You know, that what he's achieving right now, his value and what we'd be able to get him for on extension. Yes, do it today.
Right. So when you look at extension guys, right, the guys that have gotten big money in the past, you have Ronald Acuna Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now we're just going to skip all the names and just go right to Junior. He's going to get that extension. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I would dare say it, like ultimately whatever value he gets, like with all the bonuses and everything else added up, it'll be over 250 million, I would estimate. And it'll be up to somewhere around 350. It depends on how much weight the Rays and the agent and everybody else decide to put and how many years they want to dedicate to this player. Because I mean, 21, 22 years old, you could go as far as 10, 12 years and be comfortable with that, right? And the thing that's striking me most about Junior Caminero is for a while, people were kind of resigned to the fact that he wasn't going to be a great defensive player. He's turning out to be a well above average, third baseman. I would never put him among the elites, and I not yet anyway, but he's definitely above average, which when you're combining that with the bat that he has, it gives you that security to go to that length, right? Because I think that's what a lot of teams shy away from when they're looking at, let's say, the Red Sox with Roman Anthony, right? They gave him that 8-year deal just to buy out a couple of free agent years. I think there's some trepidation first of all, he hasn't proven it as long as Junior has, but also that defensively, you don't know how well he's going to fit in after those 8 years. So if he becomes a first baseman, we've all seen the first baseman value kind of diminish. Bryce Harper's kind of been of that mold, having to switch to first base, and then it limits your other options, and you have to fill your outfield options with somebody else. Long story short, Junior is going to get paid. The Rays need to make him the cornerstone of their team. And they need to make that commitment, not only for Junior, but also for Rays fans, and to make them a more attractive destination for all of the other players that they want to potentially bring aboard.
It has been interesting to watch the games at Georgetown Brenner Field. You and I have talked time and again about, what makes this team. And I think Junior being a keystone of that for years to come is going to be great. But living here in Tampa and surrounded by all the spring training fields and little areas like Bradenton, they're going to be tied in with the Pirates no matter what. I go down, to Dunedin, it's going to be all about Blue Jays so when their teams come here to play, they overwhelm quite often, the stadium. And I noticed watching the Mariners, even though the Mariners they're not really around this area, I'm seeing tridents in the stands, man. It's blowing my mind. But the chants are strong from the opposition. One thing I saw in there that had me a little conflicted last night. There's a man who just turned 82 years old about a week ago, and he's sitting up there in the stands, and he has been the manager for both the Rays and the Mariners. And I'm talking about Sweet Lou Piniella himself. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw any of that with him out there, but it was good to see him there. One of the things that I didn't realize at first was that the Mariners manager, Dan Wilson, had actually played as a Mariner underneath Lou.
Oh,
So Lou's watching the game and he's wearing, it looked like a Mariner blue. It wasn't really insignia or anything on there, but it was that kind of color. I guess you could have said it was either team, but it was kind of neat to see him because I know 82 years old getting out anywhere is probably a good deal.
yeah.
But did you see, if you saw that part where they shot up to Lou? It was interesting because the first things you think of the kind of mercurial nature he would have, sometimes arguing things with the umps. And when they went to shoot the photo of him up in the stands, you hear this noise going down on the field. So they take the cameras back down, and there is the man he had mentored as a player, Dan Wilson, the manager, getting into it with the umpire because the umpire had somebody on the Mariners dugout thought he was chattering about calling balls and strikes. So,
Right. Well,
so
he
that
did. The umpire missed a high and away call, right?
yeah,
And I think it wasn't egregious. It was maybe 3, 4 inches off the plate. Like we've seen worse from a lot of different umpires. But I think it shows the moment because the Mariners are feeling that pressure. They're feeling that tension, and they're
oh
four
yeah,
and six in the last 10. They're not doing as well as they want to. They're starting to hear the footsteps behind them. And that's a tough position to be in. So every single call is amplified at that point. And I think it was Luke Raley that chipped at the ump and kind of got away with it. And the manager decided to step in just to protect his players, I think.
yeah. It looked like it was Rayleigh.
Mhm.
And I thought he was even leaving, but then I heard it's Dan Canzone, and that Rayleigh actually came in to replace him. So there
Right.
was some curiosity about what was actually going on, and I don't know. I mean, if you're an umpire, you're going to hear some chatter, and usually, how are they going to pick out which person in the dugout is doing it if their eye is supposed to be going on to the ball? Their focus has to be. But I found it kind of humorous that.
It
They're
happened right then.
Oh yeah, with Luke. But I love that man. He's such an icon of baseball around here, and I'm just always glad to see him out and about. I've met him a few times at the Tampa Baseball Museum. Perfect fella. But it wasn't just ejection night here. I'm going to step out of George Steinbrenner Field for a moment. And you probably saw this whole thing with Rafael Devers and Willie Adames, and I can't remember the name of the pitcher for the Rockies. Devers being Devers. He hits that whole home run, and he just looks and watches that ball. I don't think it looked like it was going to go foul. I don't think he was waiting for that. I think he was just wanting to soak it all in, babe. Just see that ball go, and totally frustrated the pitcher with the Rockies. So much so he didn't just say something for the mound. He starts walking toward Devers, pointing, saying, "Walk to first. Hey, come on, you already hit it. Get to it."
Well, the thing that kind of blew me away is in the first inning. Like, when do you ever see brawls in the first inning? Like,
Yeah.
I've never. Maybe back in the Red Sox and Yankees days where they were really like tense rivalries and
Hmm.
Johnny Damon jumped ship and went to the Yankees and whatever. In that time frame, sure, maybe that could happen. Or I don't know, Roger Clemens used to like to, or Pedro Martinez even used to like
Oh,
to, hit somebody if they hit a home run off them the last time they saw him. Okay, well then there's a history, there's something there. But here there was no history that I'm aware of anyway before the moment. And I mean, are you supposed to have that big of a celebration and that kind of reaction after a home run in the first inning? And I mean, Rafael Devers hasn't exactly been, you know, lights out since he got to the Giants. Like he hasn't been, an MVP caliber player. So what just to me, that kind of it was comical.
Oh
It
yeah.
was sort of like that. Okay, what's going on? And then I think Matt Chapman's the only one that got a suspension out of it. Am I right?
I didn't see the suspension. I just saw the ejections. He might have because I saw
Right.
him going straight up to the pitcher, and I think Adamas got pitched out more after the initial brouhaha
Mhm.
because and Adamas was telling the pitcher he needed to get off the field. I love Willie Adamas, man. You know, we've talked about him being the glue guy when he was here, and the passion he can bring and stoke up a team. So, but it was a little different than I expect from Willie because he's looked very very incensed about the whole situation.
I will mention one thing about Devers though. I think we've spoken a lot over the years, or a lot of people have. Now, does this qualify? So one of the big beefs about the Giants is that no Giants hitter had hit 30 home runs while playing for them, and since Barry Bonds basically left them, right? So does this year count, even though he played so many games with Boston before he he got to the San Francisco? Because he's at 30 right now. So I don't think that qualifies. I think it has to be a full season or 30 hit while in the Giants uniform, right?
Agreed, agreed. I mean, because for one thing, it's two different home fields, et cetera, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, that's not going to count, babe. We're not going to put that there. It, but it was a night of ejection for a former race. I mean, I didn't. Again, a fella I didn't necessarily expect to see, but I didn't realize Jose Caballero with the Yankees. So that where'd he go? Oh, that's right, he's with the Yankees, and he's there getting into a disagreement with the umpire about whether or not he had actually swung or not. At the same time, I think the ball hit the bat, supposedly hit up off the ground, et cetera. And I understand how he may have been a little frustrated, but evidently this is the second time within the last couple of weeks that Caballero has been ejected from the game. Maybe it's just not fitting just quite yet that New York vibe for Jose. I don't know.
Maybe that's why they brought him in, though. Maybe they want that edge, right? And
Yeah.
I heard a lot of chatter about how badly, Anthony Volpe has been at shortstop defensively. And I think more than anything, they wanted to bring some competition for him, but also an alternative if Volpe doesn't turn it around by the playoffs. Like, you don't want to jeopardize your performances in the playoffs just because your shortstop isn't showing up defensively. So Anthony Volpe can still, in some occasions DH and lead off if they want him to, and then have Caballero at shortstop and hitting ninth or eighth or whatever. But he's got some fire in him. He always has. And remember with the Rays, he had hit a triple once, or he had slid in at third base.
Mhm.
And whoever was at third base had a real problem with how it happened and what he did. And there's always something seemingly rubbing people the wrong way with Jose. And a lot of times I'm thinking, what is he saying on the field? Like, we don't get to hear all the chatter on the field, right? So there must be a lot of exuberance and a lot of, you know, things that he does and says that rub people the wrong way. That's basically the way it comes down.
Oh, I know. I wish him well. It's been interesting to watch, and I mean, it's let's see, where are we tonight? Oh my gosh, we are now at the bottom of the fourth, still 8-0, but it is going to be a great night. I can't help but keep going back to Junior Caminero with what you're saying about this young man. He has made this game so exciting. We've got so many great new players we talked about last week that are coming up, and one fellow who came back up also is Richie Palacios. You and I were talking last week. I said, who's that guy? I don't remember him. Who is he?
Yeah, there's a reason I mentioned him last week because I saw, the bat was coming around in Durham, and you just know that some guys. I mean, Richie, and for those that don't know, grew up a Yankees fan, so hit for him, just playing at Steinbrenner Field is an honor, and I'm sure he takes it with a lot of pride that he gets to play there now, at a full-time basis with the Rays for this season, but. Um, he's one of those spark plugs. You mentioned that when I mentioned him. Like, he's one of those guys that brings a lot of energy to the field. And so when you start looking at the supporting cast that the Rays have, so they have Yandy Diaz, Brendan Lau, and they have, maybe a little bit of veteran leadership in fiducia, but the rest of them are very young players and energy. You just freaking fireballs, really. Chandler Simpson, Jake Mangum, Josh Lowe. Yeah, everybody has that energy or that pizzazz. Like they want to go out there and just leave it on the field. And Junior Caminero is a huge part of that. When he hit that double yesterday and he was pounding on his chest, like just I'm positive he got back to the hotel that night or at home and he was bruised. There was a bruise in there somewhere. That's how hard he was hitting and pounding his chest. But he's feeling it. He's going for that energy. And to me, that's why you pay the man. It's because when you're showing up in those key moments in the pressure situations, chasing a playoff spot, you're young, you're the anchor of the lineup in the fourth spot, and you're producing, or in the third spot, or in the second spot, wherever he is. It doesn't matter. He produces, and you never hear anything bad from him. He's always positive. Chris Morrell hits a home run. He's the first one you to go up and congratulate him. He's high energy not only for himself, but for the other players, and that feeds into the entire team. So I just see a leadership quality coming from him down the road that is going to be very, very, very positive for the Rays overall. And that's what I wanted to speak to in terms of Carson Williams as well, because Carson Williams just seemed to fit like a glove next to Junior Caminero. Like it seems like there's a camaraderie there, a relationship that they built in Durham that kind of works extremely well and has given Carson Williams a real comfortable home as soon as he arrived at the Rays. Now, the Rays did wait a long time before they called him up in this season, and I think Carson's put in the work to get to where he is, but it definitely has to feel good. Just you look at across the diamond, you've got Bob Seymour, and then you look behind you in left field, and you've got Chandler Simpson, and you've got Jake Mangum in center field, and you're like, this feels like I'm just back in Durham. Like, this is very familiar to me and not a shock to my system. So I hope the Rays do make that commitment. What I'd like to see with Carson Williams is to do a sort of what they did with Brendan Lowe. Remember his deal, the initial one? They basically bought out all of the arbitration years and then one or two options, right? That's it. Just clean, simple, but it does kind of say, you know what, this commitment, you're our second baseman in Brandon Lowe's case. In this case, I'd like them to do the same just to show Carson, we believe in you, we're making a commitment to you, and you're going to get paid at least to this amount. I don't know if that happens this year, if they wait till next. I can't remember when Brandon signed his, but I believe it was extremely early in that we were all going, why on earth did they sign him so quickly? Because there was a lot of defensive question marks about Brendan Lowe at that point, right?
Right.
And that's the difference with Carson, is that there are no defensive question marks with him. It all has to do with the bat. So each one has their own weaknesses. But I think Junior and Carson, signing both of those guys, making them the staple of the left side of your infield, having seen what we've seen so far since Carson's been up, I don't see why you wouldn't commit to that for the long term.
Well, the Rays have got some decisions to make for the future. I mean, we've talked about it last week. We were saying the 2026 Rays. But the thing of it is, we're looking at going above 500. As you mentioned, just a couple of 2.5 games, I believe, behind the Mariners for a wild card spot. And yes, there are other teams in between and things can happen. But it's so easy. I mean, at the beginning of the year, you say World Series, World Series. Of course, the Yankees do that all the time. And then say, you know, we're probably going to win the division, so we'll be at least somewhere. And then you say, well, maybe we'll get a spot in there somewhere. We'll get a wild card. And that started to slip away. But when you come back in the last 10 games with 8 wins, that gives hope to actually being part of the postseason, because last week it didn't feel strong that there's any possibility. I mean, not that the doors are wide open right now, but it looks much better than it did a week ago.
I do want to say that even right now, let's say they don't make the playoffs, right? It doesn't matter, to be quite honest, because let's just paint the picture. Let's say they do make the playoffs, they play 2 games, they're out. Right? What is the difference between that and all of the games that they're playing right now in September to get there?
Yeah.
Like that to me is still important. The fact that they've done enough to hang around to make these next, 20 games or 15 games or 17, you know, to make those matter. So right now, the Rays are teaching their young guys how to play under pressure situations in Major League Baseball. So when we sat here last week, I thought it was going to go the opposite way. I really did. I thought it was going to go to be maybe a 3-7 record over the last 10 games. And then you're looking at the complete opposite where the rest of the games don't really matter. The players turn off, they sort of go into a routine. And so there's a lesser development is what I would say. You're still facing major league pitching, you're still performing in the big leagues, but not in the same mindset as if you're chasing that playoff spot. So that's what I'm excited right now is because the players that are there that are young and that are just learning are getting the benefit of that. And I think that'll pay dividends next year, the year after that, to the point where they actually appreciate what it feels like and what it takes to get there.
I like that better than when you see just bringing a player up for the last game or two of the season to give them a taste. But right now, we've got a cadre of a few players that we see as the components of next year because they're getting several games between now and the end of the season. I agree with you 100% there, Matt, because last week I wasn't even feeling any possibility about postseason. But now that there's a possibility of it, yeah, that's going to amp up those young people that are in the game, these players with the Rays.
And that's a great point, Mark. I want to link that back to Ha-Seong Kim, who you mentioned before, where the Rays put him on waivers. Yeah. That was a high risk placement on waivers. They committed to saying, we're done with Ha-Seong Kim. We want to see Carson Williams now, and we're willing to pay $20 million to make it happen. That's what the Rays said. Because if the Braves don't pick up that option or that contract, the Rays are on the hook for the rest of his salary this year, and they're on the hook for his salary next year. And then another team can sign him for league minimum if he wants, and they're fine, right? So if I'm Carson Williams and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, like that's insane that they would actually risk paying a player $20 million to sit at home just to get me playing time on the field. Like that is, I don't know. I've never really thought of it until now in that sense, but that's what they did. And I don't know if they had any insight on whether or not Ha-Seong Kim was going to get picked up by the Braves. You could argue for that or against. I mean, you may hear rumors, but still to put that pen to paper, convince the owner to make it so, and then, cross your fingers and toes that it's going to happen, that's still a significant risk.
It has been exciting to see that happen too, because I'm like you. I thought when I first heard they put him on waivers, I thought, really, you're going to gamble with this? Is somebody else going to just sit back and watch it go? Because right now, I can see a lot of reasons where he's not that attractive to pick up that much money or pick up even half of it.
Just the health, Mark. Like, how long has he been on the field?
Yeah.
Like, so that was a significantly risky play. And the irony of it all is that the Braves, who've dealt with injuries from Ozzie Albies, injuries from Ronald Acuna Jr., injuries from Austin Riley, they decide to pick up another injury player to kind of try to fix the boat. So for the first time in a while, I'm looking at Alex Anthopoulos and going, I don't know, man. That's filling your boat with a lot of Swiss cheese.
Oh. Getting back to the game tonight, it's looking like the Rays are going to put they'll have 9 of the last 10 games as wins, and I'm excited about that. The energy that gives a team moving forward is just it's just building a momentum, and there's a lot of leaderships going on. We were I won't say we're concerned. We were wondering whether or not we would see Brandon Lowe and we'd see Yandy Diaz, after the trades. Thankfully, they kept them. These men are still performing. These men are still leaders for the other players. And I think it's really going to work out for the team for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Mark.
Please.
So Adrian Houser has thrown 5 innings so far. He has allowed 1 hit, no walks, no runs, thrown 47 pitches. The Rays are up 8-0. Does he pitch a complete game?
Ooh. Oh, I mean, he could, but will they let him? I think they should let him. I don't know that Kevin will, but or that the front office will.
If he's under 100 pitches, I think he does. If, maybe up to 105. Anything above that, I think they'll make the change, just because he has allowed that one hit. So there's no glory in other than having a complete game stat. But
Yeah.
I also haven't paid attention much to the usage of the pen through this series, and knowing who is worn, who isn't. So that's another consideration, right? Is how much of a rest does the pen need, or does Pete need work, or does somebody else need work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I honestly think that if he does need to rest the pen, this sets up the next series very well, because now you're talking about, this series, not only the good feels about sweeping the Mariners, but also moving on to another important series, because all of them are important, with a fresh pen. I mean, that's going to be gold for Kevin Cash to work with. So I've got to tip my hat to all the pitchers. Shane Baz is exceeding my expectations big time. So is Drew Rasmussen. He's been one of the most elite pitchers over the last, month and a half. And I know the Rays committed a little bit of money to both of them, but I think with the amount of what they're risking body-wise and the amount of effort that they're putting into it, I really hope it pays off for them and that they're able to stay healthy, for the rest of this year and next year and beyond. And because these guys have special talents, there is a lot of intrigue when you're looking at the performances recently and what they could do in the playoffs if they actually get there.
It's an exciting time, man. I tell you what, as far as Rays up, I'm couldn't be happier about what's happening. This, like I said, this past week. I just hope the team's momentum continues. I mean, we're looking over here, like I said, here's an interesting statistic. Over the last 10 games since August 22nd, the Rays have outscored opponents 60-28. I didn't realize that, brother. And recorded 40 extra base hits while yielding an MLB low 14 extra base hits. The 26 extra base hit gap is the largest positive difference in the majors over that span, ahead of the Yankees, let's see, which were plus 21. So, man, it is just, that's the kind of vitality you love to see with your team.
Right. And the Rays have the same run differential as the division leading Blue Jays. So that's for the season overall.
Wow.
So I mean, the Rays, we've seen the potential is there, Mark. We know they're a better team that they've shown all the way through the series, the season. They've had some bad luck. They've had guys we were hoping were going to come back healthy that haven't, guys that got hurt at the wrong times, etc. But I think overall, you have to be satisfied if you're a Rays fan that your team and front office made the right moves to try to improve the team where they needed to. All the pen improvements, the outfield improvements, everything that they've done, they've tried to do for the better of the team this season. And they've committed to this season, I think, more than a lot of people thought they were going to. I think there was a lot of people at the deadline, like you mentioned it earlier in the show, that thought Yandy Diaz and Brendan Lowe were going to be gone. And it was basically a foregone conclusion. And so the commitment the Rays showed to them, that's going to help later on. Like, I think that buys cred for the front office to say, you know what, like if you're a veteran, you sign with the Rays now, if you perform, if you do what you got to do, they're going to commit to you and they're going to keep you around if they want to go for it that season. So I like to see that. Like all the commitments they've made this year are very interesting. A lot of 3-year, guys that have been brought in. So all the success they're having right now hopefully feeds into 2026 as well.
Well, let's see. We've enjoyed so much about the Rays. We're going to look a little bit to a little bit. We talk about the young players on the team, but I think we're taking a look at some younger players than those here. Got my brother Chris coming on the show here just a few minutes after a quick break. And I want to thank you all for the Raise Up portion of this week's edition. And Matt, thank you with that. But look forward to chatting with Chris here and seeing where this great talent, where it actually comes from. And now part 2 of this week's Baseball Biz edition as Chris Corbett joins Matt and Mark. Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. Matt and I have a very special guest today, and that is my wonderful brother, Chris Corbett, who I had the great pleasure of a travel experience with baseball like none other. About a week ago, we went to Williamsport, PA to see the semifinals in the Little League World Series. Hey, welcome, Chris. How you doing today, brother?
Great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I have to say, how you doing today, brother? And I use that word a lot, but with you, it's nice to be able to actually have it, you know. I picked that up from an old guy, Jim Barr, who was in the sports department at the Courier-Journal. He's from up New York way, and everybody was brother, you know. But anyway, we had Matt, Chris and I had a great time up there. It was so much fun, stuff we were able to do. And we went up, let's see, it was on that Wednesday. And prior to that, Chris had picked me up on Tuesday at the airport, got in the car, drove all the way up to Williamsport, PA, and which was probably about a 10, 11-hour drive by the time of a couple of stops or so. It was we're starting fresh Wednesday morning, and it was 8 games, you know, full day, nothing but fun. Chris, what do you remember the most about those games?
Oh, well, you know, first off, we've driven, as you say, Mark, 600 miles to see this, and it was going to be the semifinals of both the international and for the U.S. team. So I was really excited about it. And I guess the first thing I remember is we woke up to rain, and I thought, boy, this is a long way to go for a couple of rainouts. And my wife had packed a couple of ponchos. I figured we could still watch if the kids were going to play. But the first thing I remember is being very happy that come 1 o'clock for the first game that we saw, there was no rain or negligible rain.
Yeah, it really was. It was really insignificant. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised because it stayed overcast most of the time and maybe just a mist of a rain here and there. It kept really great conditions for that. And I believe for the players too on the field. It just wasn't a nasty, humid day out there.
Correct. Yeah. Because, you know, I competing in sports, I'd much rather have the 75 degrees than the 95 degrees. And it wouldn't have been uncomfortable for the young guys out there.
Yeah, Matt, it was something too. I mean, to be able to see all these young players out there, you know, they're playing obviously on a smaller diamond for Little League, but what they did with the space was amazing. But to see, let's see, who was it? There was Connecticut, Las Vegas for the U.S., plus who else? The Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and a South Carolina team. If we looked at the international teams, you'd see Venezuela, and they were playing against Chinese Taipei. Caribbean had Riba, and Japan with the Johto Little League from Tokyo. But each one of these teams, when we would go into that stadium, it was exciting to see that they had their own fan base there. And Chris, you remember how they were in the stands? China Taipei?
Yeah, they had some musical instruments and were giving some rhythm there and making some noise. And I think maybe they were the visiting team, so they came to bat first. I remember your comment is, I hope they don't make that noise for the entire game. Maybe it's just when they're at the plate, but they were excited and having fun.
They were indeed. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun indeed to catch all that. Now,
So I have to ask, the WBC, we saw a lot of that, right? Where, you know, the international fans had their own chants, they had their own music sections. Do you think over time that'll rub off on some of the American fans? Like, were any of the American teams having that kind of ambiance, I guess, overall, or was it more limited to the international teams?
For me, it was the international teams. If you remember, Mark, the Caribbean team, they were quite boisterous and having a lot of fun. But Matt, there would be chants like you'd hear at a game for your team. from the American side and cheering for the individual kid who was at the plate or maybe who had made a nice defensive play. But we didn't see anything from the American fans the day we were there.
Gotcha.
One thing that was a little sad from my perspective too was with the international teams, Latin America, Venezuela. The players were there, but their families weren't able to make it to from either customs or some, I guess, political situation going on with Venezuela. But there were still plenty of people there to support them. I mean, you'd see folks in the stands with wearing their jerseys and making some noise. But I'd have to say that Chinese Taipei took it all when it came to having somebody out there, a leader banging a drum and going the whole time. But the games, Chris is much better about this than I am, Matt, because he had been following much more closely what was happening with these teams long before we got there. And Chris, when you were looking at the teams up and coming, was there one that was standing out to you more than the others?
There really was, and it was a Connecticut team. I kind of joke, called them Greater New York City because I think they're just a little bit up the coast, up the river from New York City. But they had a couple of brothers on the team. Their star was not a very large fellow. I can't remember his name right off the bat. Luca someone. But yeah, I particularly enjoyed watching them. And the day we were there, Mark, they did some strange things with all those line drives and running the bases. They were innovative in what they did out there for 11 and 12-year-old kids.
I was impressed too. And I was thinking as far as that one pitcher, I want to say Gallegos, the young blonde pitcher, he was just amazing to watch. And you were talking about the two brothers. They were to see, and you would find some of these players, Matt, you would find them playing multiple positions. I mean, because they actually have a pitch count meter, if you will. Once a pitcher gets to what is it, Chris? Is it 85 pitches?
I think it was. Of course, if you start with a batter, you can go above that and finish with that batter. But they have a series of rules, Matt, and it was 85 for the day. But then maybe 20 you can't pitch the next day, 40 you can't pitch 2 days, or something along these lines. But the coaches were well aware of this, and it's my understanding that they're all-star teams, from different leagues and all. So you're going to grab as many good pitchers as you can, and a lot of times at that age, maybe one of your best players is your pitcher.
Yeah, the thing that I find interesting, because I've dug a little bit deeper into the Little League World Series, and I don't think people understand how old it is. I don't think people understand exactly how old the players are that play it. Like they hear Little League World Series, they think, okay, maybe it could be 8-year-olds, it could be 14-year-olds, it could be 15-year-olds, but these kids are 10 to 12, right? And this has been going on since 1947, so it's 78 years that the Little League World Series has been going on in the same location. So it's kind of an interesting event because it's always held in South Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So the first question I have for both you and Mark is, how's the spread? Like, are they ready to receive you guys? Like, do they have a lot of snacks? Like because you got to feed a lot of people when they're there. A lot of families, a lot of teams coming through. So what were you guys eating while you were there?
We ate some of the typical ballpark food, and Matt, it was a really nice time, and everybody treated us very well, and we saw some amazingly talented young men play ball. But to tell you the truth, I know if you saw much on TV with the young ladies that were on ESPN and some of the macaroni on top of the burgers and things, the domestic food left a little bit to be desired. I actually had to go up the hill where they slide on the cardboard boxes to get some of the international cuisine, and that was actually a little better for my taste, Matt.
Not interesting. So they do represent the international taste buds, which is, that's pretty much what I was leaning towards, was
yes,
how widespread is the choice selection. So you've got all these American and international fans and families and players mixing it up. So you guys have alluded to this, like Taipei, Taiwan, related team won the entire thing. They beat Nevada 7-0. So I don't think people understand how successful that region has been in the Little League World Series. So from 1969 to 1991, they won 15 of those 23 years. They won the Little League World Series. So just to give you an idea, first of all, how committed they've been to show up for the tournament, right? Year after year after year after year. And they take it seriously. Like it's not like they just showed up, recently because of the WBC or yada, yada, yada. Like this is a long holding tradition for that country of sending a team that's very, very, very well representative of that country. So to me, it's interesting when you look at that, and then you look at the performances that have come since on the WBC and the players that have shown up. The Yankees had a pitcher from their Chan. I can't remember his name.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So he was one of the more prominent names I think that people would recognize. There's been others, but not as prominent as him. But from your idea of having seen this tournament and paying attention to it as closely as you do, Chris, what are your thoughts on these players and what it means to them? And then, going forward, do you think this tournament helps them become major leaguers down the road?
Good questions. I'll tell a little story with the first one. So when Mark coached baseball with a friend of his, that gentleman's son was a World Series champion. I mean, won this thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe this was 2001 or so when Louisville won it. But when you talked about the dominance of Chinese Taipei, we're in Louisville, we're following these guys like nothing. And, our family knew actually the grandparents, and Mark knew the parent of the young kid that was on the Valley sports team out of Louisville. And when they got to the finals, I don't know if they played Chinese Taipei or not, but I just made the automatic assumption they'd get beat because, the internationals are absolutely dominating it. So on that thing, yes, I was aware through the past that they were very dominant, maybe 80s, 90s, something like that. And as far as preparing yourselves, I wouldn't see why not. It blew me away how fundamentally sound these kids were. Mm-hmm. I'll give one example. There were these brothers that played for the Connecticut team and maybe 5'11" or so. That's pretty tall, 12-year-old. But the one catcher tagged 3 runners out at home plate. And not a one force out. They were all balls coming in from the outfield. And this guy's catching to the left of his body and swinging to the right. And they were so good. So in answer to your second question, I think these kids practice 40 hours a week in the summer. It may be a little exaggeration. So they get a little foundation there. And obviously some people have graduated from playing over there and playing in the big leagues. It's like a crash course on drilling everything that's important into you at such a young age.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. So I have a trivia question for you guys I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. It's been going on 78 years. How mm-hmm. many players do you believe have won both the Little League World Series and the Major League World Series?
Ooh. You want to try, Mark?
This is completely arbitrary. I'm going to say 5.
I would think lower. I was going to guess 2 or 3. I guess I'll flip a coin. I'll say 3.
It's actually 15.
Oh, wow. Good gravy.
Yeah. So it's surprising. It surprised me a little bit.
Surprising.
I was like, that's and some of them like are the 2 most recent ones are Michael Conforto and Cody Bellinger. And Cody Bellinger actually, I think, won it 3 times.
And these 15-year-olds both won them. Won the entire thing on both levels, right?
Right.
Wow, that really surprises me.
Right, and then there's a lot.
You only got about 12 a year to win the whole thing on the Little League.
And there's a lot of Tampa ties or Florida ties to it too. There's Boog Powell. There's Dwight Gooden, who's from Florida as well. You have Gary Sheffield, that's part of it. Let's see, who else do we have here? Yusmero Pettit, Lance Lynn, Jason Varitek, Jason Marquis. So a lot of big names and a lot of ties to Florida overall. But I was surprised by that list. I was like, I didn't think there would be that, because that takes a lot of you have to have a strong home team to be able to make it to that level, and actually win it all. Like you said, against the international products, which are usually, pretty dominant overall. And then you have to get on an MLB team that can actually do this.
Yeah.
So I think, that's why I looked it up. And that's what I was curious about. Was at first the question I asked was what how many players have made it to MLB who have won the Little League World Series? But this popped up instead, and I was like, you know what? That's even more interesting.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I would have definitely guessed less than five. That's surprising.
I know not the World Series, but I'm thinking just locally too. So you mentioned a lot of the names, but Gary Sheffield, as you said, and Kevin Cash, actually went, I believe, to the World Series with a team from here as well. But I don't think they won it, but nonetheless, it's interesting when you see all those folks. But it was, Chris, you pointed out something to me while we were there, and I hadn't really thought about it, is those teams that we were seeing were not teams that had played an entire season together. These were all-star teams from their leagues. Is that right?
That's what I understand. So when Louisville won it, they said that what was impressive was it was about a 6-team league, so it was maybe as opposed to pulling from 10 or 12 teams with 15 kids, they were pulling from a smaller pool. But that's the way I understand it. Is that you pick an all-star team from Valley Sports Little League, and then they start competing up the ladder to see what they can do in this system.
Matt, Chris was talking about the twins, the two brothers that were playing, and they weren't sharp. So one of the things I'm thinking about, I'm looking out there at the field, and I look at some of the shorter fellas, maybe on the Asian team, and then I look at these two guys, and I'm saying, okay, stealing bases, they had an advantage over them. When you're looking at Little League, what are you looking at? Let's see. You've got 46 and 6, 46 between the home plate and the mound, excuse me, yeah, and 60 between bases as opposed to the 90 feet that you have in regular baseball. So 60 feet doesn't see that much when you see some of these kids who are, who are taller than I am. Not that I'm tall, but I mean, and that makes a difference. But it was fun to watch the action. There was one whole sequence I think you both have seen where it's like four little pickles in a row trying to pick somebody off and getting runs in. And part of that was because of the size of some of these players, and part of it was because it needed a little extra coaching. But those players, they put their whole heart into it. I want to commend them too, because good sportsmanship. Matt, you and I talk about this all the time. At least I always kid that the pros should have to go ahead and say good game, good game, good game to their opponent at the end of it. And, that'll never happen. Probably just as well. They fight so damn much anyway. But they actually have a sportsmanship award. Let's see, Jack Loesch Little League Baseball World Series Sportsmanship Award. And I was not surprised to see who was it that actually won it this year. It was one of the Asian teams, and forgive me, I don't have it at my fingertips at the moment. But Chris, you remember when you would see some of these players, they would come up as a sign of respect to the umpire as they walk to the home plate to bat. If they're batting, they bow their head lightly to the umpire and sometimes to the catcher as well as a form of respect, man. And I thought, what a great thing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the sportsmanship, and I think it's very, very authentic. They talk about these kids staying at the same place where they're staying overnight, and they're playing ping pong and doing things together and enjoying each other's company. And you see it, you hear it on TV, but it really did seem like it was genuine. And yeah, with the bowing, I think that's more of an Asian thing. If anyone listening is a golfer, when Hideki Matsuyama won the Masters, maybe 6-7 years ago, when they put the flag in, I remember the caddy bowed to the course and to the crowd and all, and it just shows respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you make a good point too about how the teams gathered together in the dormitories. It wasn't like they were set up exclusively away from one another. So I think there was a camaraderie even, with inner team, if you will. So I was glad to see that. And hopefully they had some better food than hamburgers with macaroni on top of it.
Yeah. And their parents don't stay with them. So they definitely get a dormitory type of feel.
But it was a great experience. I mean, I can't thank my brother enough for that. I mean, the one thing too, we also went to, there's a museum on the campus there that we went to. They had all kinds of great history there. There's some Cy Young Award winners, gloves, etc. It was all kinds of assortments. They had a piece on the girls with game across the sports which I was always glad to see. I see Maria Pepe up there, and I think about how she had to fight, and they didn't want to let her into one of the teams, or coaches did not want to let her play against them. So, but a lot of good stuff there. And Dugout, the mascot, glad to see him running around, and kind of a cross between Bucky's looks a little rabbit beaver. But anyway, a lot of Chris. You got any other things on the teams?
I would leave it with, if you watch the telecast, you hear them say, if you come up here, you won't regret it. And I mean, I definitely did not. So we really enjoyed that. The museum was very nice. Admission is free. They're not looking to get rich off of you as you're coming up there to attend things. And the two stadiums where the international play and the U.S. teams play are right next to each other, like a 30-yard walk or so from one to the other. And the other thing to remember, these kids have to practice now. There's about 9 or 10 fields on that complex. I mean, it is a complex. Matt was very accurate at the start. I'd always heard Williamsport, and there's a little river right there. We stayed just on the north side, and it is in South Williamsport. But now I think the town does a very good job, and I think America really embraces it. Well, there's interest in it with how much ESPN covers it.
So the telltale thing is always, would you do it again? And if so, what would you do different?
I can easily answer that. Yes, on the first, and on what I would do different is I would watch one game from the outfield at Lamedy. A lot of chairs are set out there and all, and I think we watched either three of the 4 games we saw, or maybe even the fourth game, and we walked to the top actually to get the food, the international food, and it was just such a different view. I really enjoyed, because you are a section over from the parents. They reserve seats for the parents, and right after that, you can sit wherever you want. So that excitement, being among people who have children out there playing, was very good. But I would really definitely watch one game at Lamedy from a chair in the outfield.
Well, there you go. That's a golden nugget for anybody listening.
There you go, indeed. And I got to tell you, Chris, I can't thank you enough for putting this together. Something I probably thought about doing in the past, but I know you were passionate about it, and I got so much more passionate about it when I was there with you. It's an exciting time, an exciting time for those young kids as well. So, Chris, thanks again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. Do you have any final words you'd like to leave with?
No, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And Matt, it was very nice to meet you. I enjoy listening to your all shows and enjoy your input, and hope you guys have a good rest of the show.
All right.
Hello, Chris.
All right. Take care, brother. Love you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, man. I tell you what, that guy's fantastic.
I was going to ask more like brother related questions, but I was like, no, we're going to focus on the Little League World Series. Like, I wanted to know who was crying uncle and who was doing the, when you're teasing each other as kids, all that kind of
stuff. He's a sportsman. I mean, he's a competitor. He's been a champion in golf tournaments and such over the years. I mean, still continues to enjoy the game. My brother's tenacious with the game when he played as a youngster, and he still enjoys, I think, pretty much any kind of competition. So, hey, Matt, thanks again. Good having Chris here on the show. Always fun talking about the Rays and the origins of where some of those young players may have come from. But I appreciate you being here.
Been a blast as always, Mark. Thanks for having me.
All righty. So that's pretty much a wrap for this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did bringing it to you. We look forward to talking with you again real soon.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.bskysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.bskysocial, or Mark at baseballbizondeck@gmail.com. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to Scott Holmes for the music, stomps, and claps.